The doors to the hospital opened automatically. He pushed her wheelchair through them into the frigid December air. "Where's the car? I'll push you to it. You didn't pull it around?" "No," he sighed. I'll go get it. Just wait here." He started walking through the parking lot. Her glance shifted from him to the ground. The doctors told her she had to leave in a wheelchair. It wasn't her choice. Her face trembled. Her lips quivered. She shivered and rubbed her hands across her arm. She pulled up the blanket they had given her, even though she hadn't earned it. The blanket was sky blue, had little dinosaurs on it. She felt its warmth, but she hadn't been cold at all. He pulled the car around. It was a beat-up Subaru with a huge dent in the passenger side door. They'd gotten into an accident a few months ago and hadn't had the time or money to fix it. He got out and came over to the passenger side, opened the door, and went over to her with his hand extended. She took his hand and propped herself up using her other hand on the wheelchair. "Do we have to bring it back in?" I don't know. I'll take it in. Don't worry." He helped her into the car and grabbed the seatbelt to strap her in. "I can do it," she snapped. "Just deal with the chair." She exhaled slow, letting her breath linger. He let out a sigh and nodded. He grabbed the wheelchair and brought it back inside of the automatic doors. There was no one at the desk, so he just left it there. He got in the car and started it. She didn't look at him, just straight ahead. Her eyes were glazed with infantile tears, still in the birthing process. He let out another sigh and started to drive. After pulling out of the hospital, the ride lulled and dragged, traffic prevalent at that time of day. He turned on the radio. 38 Special's Hold On Loosely came bumping through the speakers. She didn't move. One tear slid down her rosy cheeks. She was always blushing that time of year. Her stomach began palpitating with each breath. They were stalled on the freeway. "Hold on loosely, but don't let go." She let out a wounded cry, half harmonizing with the chorus. She flung her hands to her face, covering her tears. He let out a sigh and looked out the driver's side window, her cries muffled in her palms. The air wasn't stale. It was dead. The traffic started moving. She couldn't stop crying. The blanket was on her lap. It started snowing. They pulled into their driveway. Snow was freshly sprinkled on the ground. He got up first and went over to help her out. She just sat still, looking at the blanket. "Come on," he said, putting his hand on her shoulder. "Let's go inside." She shooed him away. "I'll be in a minute." "Fine." He walked around the car and went inside of the house. She closed the car door, looked up at their house, and started screaming. He could hear her from inside as he scratched his face. A welcome home banner hung just inside their doorway. I guess they didn't take it down, he thought. He pulled it down with one hand and let it fall to the floor. He walked over it up the stairs. There was only one photo on the wall. It was of them sitting on some beach, smiling like only tourists can smile. He walked past the photo without a moment's glance. At the top of the stairs, he took a left and walked into a small room. A blue-coated wood carving hung from its door. Benjamin was all it said. The room was painted a similar shade of sky blue, childlike clouds painted over the sky. In the center of the room was a white crib, which he had made in the summer. He walked over to it and the mobile hanging above it, placing his hand on the left foot post of the crib. He couldn't hear her scream anymore. He had a firm grip on the crib post, his face contorted with uncontrollable rage. He swiped the mobile from the ceiling, pulling it down with one thrust. A piece of drywall came with it. He punched the crib, cracking the wood. In a flurry, he started smashing the crib. He kicked it until it splintered, sawdust dying in the bedroom air. The only sounds were of his breathing and the smashing of one piece of wood against another. She had just entered the house. She saw the banner crumpled on the floor. Then a crash came from upstairs. She bolted up them towards Benjamin's room. She stood in the doorway, watching him destroy the crib. The white paint gave way to the oak he'd used to make it. He struck the crib with a piece of the post. Losing his balance, he fell into all that remained of the crib. When he looked up, he saw her standing in the doorway. They locked eyes with each other. Her eyes were stained by tears. His were full of dust. She backed away from the doorway and walked down the stairs. He got up and followed. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned to face him. "I can't do it. I can't do this." What do you want me to say? Anything. Fucking anything. I don't know. He paused. What to say? Just fucking say something. It took everything in her to get those words out. She started sobbing. Just say something, please. I'm sorry. She collapsed to the floor, her head in her hands, crying an ocean. He got down on his knees and held her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's my fault, she said. No, stop it. Don't say that. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It has to be. Why else would this happen? He shook his head. Who else can we blame? I don't know, but it's not your fault. Stop fucking saying that, she screeched. You know goddamn well it is. He sighed and looked away from her. You blame me, don't you? She slapped his chest. Don't you, huh? You fucking blame me, don't you? Just fucking say it. She made a low sobbing sound. Don't fucking sit here and tell me it's not my fault when you know it's my fucking fault. I don't believe it's your fault, he screamed, then softer. I don't believe it's your fault. Or my fault. Or anyone's fault. It just happened. There's nothing any of us could have done. She looked him in the eyes. But it has to be my fault. I'm the She stopped. It has to be my fault. A tear slid down her cheek, dropping off her chin. It's not your fault, he paused. I love you. He grabbed her and held her in his arms. She could hear him sobbing. Her own tears felt cold on her face. Outside it had stopped snowing. Their car was frosted in a thin layer of fresh ice. Across the street, 2 kids were playing. One threw a mushy snowball at the other. They were laughing and shouting. The kid's mother opened the door of their house. Bobby, Merle, come inside. The food's ready. The 2 boys looked at each other and smiled. They ran indoors, leaving muddy boot prints in the fresh snow.